option, and then from there you have to create the iTunes episode number option in your preference. So I got to go through how they're setting it up, but there's something in the title that I don't 100% understand right now. But just wanted to.
I got to email Spreaker and figure this out. This is Apple.
Yeah. No. I think this is important for somebody who's out there listening. I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Just knowing that it's a moving target sometimes. One day the platform can completely change. We've seen this happen with YouTube. YouTubers were making all this cash, and one day a couple years ago they changed their algorithms, and boom. Nobody was making any money. And Amazon all these YouTubers gone. Amazon too. Facebook. All of them. They're always changing, which is why the principle is don't build on rented land, which is why Alex has IndieFilmHustle, .com, right. And I have FilmTrooper.com, and I have other .coms that I
IFHTV, right?
Yeah, so you control it. You utilize the other platforms for, promotion, marketing, and reach, but you may not. Just get ready because you never know what happens. You might just lose that traffic for a while. I had some of my favorite podcasters. They were living off basically Amazon affiliate money.
Oh, and I remember
all of a sudden they got booted off. And
they didn't get booted off. It just dropped. Like the percentages dropped. Like if you were making $500 a month off of it or $1,000 a month, now you're making. It was like down to 10% of that.
These guys apparently they thought they had violated something, so they got blocked. So they were like, because whoa, what are the rules of being an Amazon affiliate? So they had to fight, and scrap to get back on. But there was a couple weeks they were like literally no revenue. And if they had built your whole business off that, you're like, okay.
It's kind of like buying a stock and putting all your money in one stock. You gotta diversify, man. My revenue streams are diversified dramatically. Mm-hmm. It's like almost sickening how many revenue streams I have. I'm so diversified on everything. So when something goes down, I've got the other things picking it up, and vice versa. And they all don't always come in at the same thing. And this is a good piece of advice for filmmakers. Like if you put all your eggs into how much money the movie is actually going to make for you, then in the indie level is not good. Where you start creating ancillary products off of that movie, and that's how you start making money. It's like the Vegan Chef movie I always talk about, where you make a romantic comedy about a vegan chef who meets a meat eater, and then why wouldn't you create a series of online courses teaching you how to be a vegan chef or doing recipes or something along those lines?
Yeah.
And that becomes the main. And distributors don't own that, and you own that 100%, and you're keeping 100% of that money, while the movie's out there pretty much as like a loss leader almost. Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead did that. Food Matters did that. There's a lot of movies that have done that in the past, and it works really well, whether it be T-shirts or hats or courses or online other things that you can create, albums, things like that. But that's diversification is a huge deal. And the more of those you can do, like I always tell people, if someone showed up with $250,000 and they wanted me to make a movie, I'll go, great, I can make at least 5, if not more movies.
Yeah.
So you could diversify that, you spread out the risk over multiple films, in that you have a much better chance of recouping your money as opposed to putting it all in one basket, if you will.
Yeah, no, I remember. It's funny. I had a conversation with a filmmaker that said that, like, if you had $250,000 to make your movie, like my style would be the whole Swingers, Doug Lyman's approach with working with Jon Favreau on Swingers. He said, okay, I've got $200,000 to make this movie, but let's make it look like it was made for $25,000. So
right.
That the idea is that it's purposely made to look really cheap, but they had enough overhead that they can do all the things they want to do without trying to push it. So it's like, oh, here's $250,000. Okay, I'll make a $25,000 movie. I'm going to use about $100,000 of it for marketing and all these other things. So like you're building out a more complete business model, because the business model is we all either provide goods or services, and then we have to distribute that to a consumer or a customer base that's going to buy it, right? So a lot of people just focus on the film as the product alone, and that's all their money goes into product development, and there's no money for distribution, marketing, all the other things that go in basic business. And so that's the idea. Like, if you have $250,000, do you put $250,000 towards your movie, or say, you know what, we're making a $25,000 movie, and then we're going to use all the other stuff to build out the rest of the business. The other thing too, we talked about diversification, or like a mutual fund, like you can't get all your revenue stream. Yeah. That's the one thing I learned about. The major takeaway I have from Film Trooper after meeting with so many different people in the industry and seeing what was going on in the world is that our movie is nothing more than an amplifier or an advertisement for something bigger than the film itself, or more a higher priced product, and that's kind of it. And or George Lucas,
but books are doing it right now. There's a lot of authors who I just read this book called the Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lahiani, and that book, the whole book is an advertisement for you to go to his website, and when you go to his website, he gives you a free course. But if you want to level up, there's a $298 course you could buy, which is like 10 hours of going in depth into that book. So even authors are starting to get into it, like Real Artists Don't Starve by Jeff Goins. He did the same thing. You go to his website and he gives, sign up and get this course. And if you want even more, it's going to cost you another $20 because they get 100% of that.
Yeah.
They own 100% of that. While the publishing is a horrible deal generally. It's generally like a 90-10 deal. And if you're lucky to see a dime back, it's very similar to distributors for films.
Right.
Very, very similar, but actually worse in many ways.
Well, George Lucas, I mean, what did he say? He said all the money's in the action figures. That's what he said.
Lunchboxes and action figures.
Because you got the lunchbox.
I got the lunchbox. Lunchboxes and action figures.
But there's nothing. I mean, that's the principle. It's like all the money's in the action figures, but that's a large scale. On a small scale, like you said, independence. It's like, you might work with a distribution company. You might, as a publisher, might work with a publishing company. I think it's interesting. The same people we follow, they talk about book writing. They said that authors or writers write, publishers publish, but nobody sells. It's in the same world as filmmakers. Filmmakers will make the film.
Great. I like that. I'm going to steal that one.
Use it, definitely. Filmmakers make the film, a distribution company distributes, but nobody sells.
It's true.
So that
who's selling?
Who's selling it after it gets distributed?
Right.
After it gets published, who's selling? Exactly. And so with that mindset is approaching your work that way. Let me ask you, since we haven't talked in a while, we have a little time here. I would love to know your perspective.
I'm here for at least another hour, so just prepare yourself. I'm good.
We might say this is part 1, part 2.
Don't kick me off yet, Scott. I love talking to you. Go ahead.
I wanted to know. I just talk shop. I want to know, since we've gone through all this stuff, and hopefully people are taking away, this conversation, some nuggets here. Well, let me ask you, what do you have seen? Has anything changed in terms of the landscape of independent film or film in the last, since last year, since we've spoken? Is it still just the same hustle, or like, because things are kind of settled in a sense, like when we were, when we met, like we were seeing the influx of like all of a sudden Amazon direct video,
Netflix,
Netflix, like what is it now? So all of a sudden now Netflix is beginning to find its groove, or what it is in the industry. And then, and there's a lot of content being made. So I was just curious what your thoughts were about the landscape of independent filmmaking. And I'm talking about uber independent filmmaking, not the ones that are working in the film markets. Yeah. The ones that are not, the ones are not part of the Indie Spirit Awards. They are
exactly
the nuts
Gotham Awards, right?
Right, exactly.
I think that filmmakers now who are not marketers and not entrepreneurs will not make it. It's as simple as that. If you're not an entrepreneur, if you're not a marketer, you will not make it as an independent filmmaker. If you rely on other people to do it for you, if you rely on companies to do it for you, you're not going to make it at the low budget world. And even when you start getting the $100,000, the $500,000, the $1 million budgets or higher, if you don't understand more of that situation and you rely on somebody else to do everything for you, you will not make it. That's as simple as that. That is the new paradigm that we're in. That is the world, and it's only getting worse. And meaning that it's getting more competitive. There is more things that are going after our attention. So the competition is fierce. If you don't understand this and don't see this coming, you're just not going to make it. It's just not going to make it. And I mean, of course, it's always about a good story and a good movie. But I promise you, and I've seen it happen, I've seen good movies that I'm like, why haven't I seen this?
Mm-hmm.
Because the people behind it didn't know how to get it out there. And it's not always that the best rises to the top. The cream doesn't always rise to the top. Not when there's so much competition for eyeballs with major marketing. But do you know that there's like my Netflix list, my queue is just my queue I won't get to.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff that's out there that I personally have a limit of maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, if I'm lucky to kind of veg and watch a little TV. That's it. That's all I have. I will, like, at that point you become very picky with what you watch because you only have so much time. I'm not 20 anymore that I could just sit there and watch TV for 8 hours, 10 hours. And that's not even all the things you could do now. You could be playing video games for hours and hours a day. You could be doing, the Atmos virtual reality thing for another 10 hours. There's so many things to consume our attention, just being on Instagram or social media or YouTube for hours long. And there's too much competition. So if you don't know how to build a brand, you don't know how to build a company, you don't know how to build something around a movie, if you can't market, you can't create products, this should be all things taught at film school. This is the future. I think what film schools are doing now is archaic. They're using the system that was around 40 years ago, and they're still teaching the same stuff. They're just not teaching anything that's relevant in this world in the way we're doing it. Sure, we all need to know about cameras. Sure, we need to know about film theory and all that great stuff. But at the end of the day, when you get spit out with the other 10,000 graduates of this day being released around the world into the film business, guess what? You got to compete with all of those. Oh, also, by the way, those 10,000 you're going to compete with from today that got released, don't forget about tomorrow's, and don't forget about the guys that were released last week. So you have so much massive competition for these jobs and things like that. I think if you're fighting, I look at it like the blue water, red water syndrome. You've read that book, right?
Yeah, that book. Yeah. Blue ocean, red ocean. Yeah.
Blue ocean, red ocean, right? Yeah. So the film industry, the indie film industry right now, if you go down the traditional way, is in a red ocean, meaning that is blood in the water. That means sharks are just eating everybody up because there's just so much competition. Whereas if you go down the blue road, where the blue ocean is, all the fishing you want. There's no competition for anything. And that's where you want to be. It's scarier because no one's been out there, but that's where you need to be as a filmmaker. There's no question about it. I mean, I opened up a streaming service, for God's sakes. I'm the only filmmaking Netflix-style service in the world. I'm in a blue ocean.
Yeah.
But it's scary out here by myself. And believe me, I would rather stay by myself for quite some time. Because, like you've asked me before, Jason Buff from Film Academy, that you guys have asked me, how are you doing this? How are you making money? Mm-hmm. Like, how is this your full-time job? And it's because I do things that sometimes just I'm on by myself. I do things that are on my own. I got things planned this year that teasing, right? You see, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. I got like so many things I'm doing right now. I'm writing another book as well. That's going to be more of an instructional book. All these things that I have going on, but I'm going out in places that are nobody else is in right now. So that's kind of where you need to be as a filmmaker, or do things that are a little bit outside the box that you don't have as much competition to do.
Yeah. It's interesting because you were talking about the book authors now are getting in the game where it's beyond just the book. There's go to the website, here's this consulting, training, whatever it might be. You said filmmakers, here's the film, but it has all this other stuff, or diversifying. And we talked about music. I just read an article about the punk band Misfits, that what they're doing now. Like my daughter, like I've seen it late because my daughter's totally into music now. She's going to these small shows. It's not just buying a ticket to see a band anymore. They are now doing what they've seen at all these comic conventions, where if you want to meet the actor, you buy the photo op, package, or the VIP package, or the autograph. Now you could do it with the band. So my daughter's going to see Tori Kelly, and she bought the VIP package to meet her prior. And then, so now these bands, they could tour and say, oh, for an extra, for $150, get to come in early, have a one-on-one with the artist, photo op, whatever it is, and have a chance to talk to them. And so this is a premium you're paying, just as if you were at the comic conventions. And even a band like the Misfits, we're talking about Glenn Danzig's band, like they have to do 40